Cheryl, over to you.
Hello everyone. Welcome to the second day of Invest ASEAN 2022. And I hope everyone is doing great. An organization's sustainability depends on it remaining financially viable, continually creating value for its shareholders and those that it impacts, and engaging with its stakeholders in a non-destructive, long-term and value-creating manner. For the purposes of sustainability, organizations need to ensure an appropriate balance between its own needs as well as those of its shareholders and stakeholders. If an organization is not making money, it cannot exist for very long. But if its actions lead to the destruction of society and the environment, then it will eventually ensure its own destruction. Sustainability for an organization is therefore a matter not only of moral purpose, but of practical benefit too. Ladies and gentlemen, ASEAN countries face new challenges and megatrends, such as urbanization, rapid technological advances, and emerging demographic shifts, which will shape the region's development landscape and therefore its future. Home to over 600 million people, the ASEAN region is extremely diverse, rapidly changing, and is experiencing progress across many aspects. Extreme poverty is falling rapidly across much of the region. Progress is being made in key areas of health, such as maternal mortality and tuberculosis prevalence, which are falling in almost all countries, in addition to much better management of the COVID-19 situation. Access to education has grown and is now above 95% at primary levels in all countries. Yet the scale of the challenges ahead to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals is significant. Even in the countries and regions where extreme poverty has fallen significantly, there remain many working poor. Vulnerability to falling back into poverty is high, and the missing middle is experiencing rising incomes but lacks access to basic services. 90% of people have access to improved water sources, though only 72% to improved sanitation sources. Access to healthcare and quality secondary education remain challenges in many parts of the region, and only 4 countries have achieved universal health coverage, and in 6 countries, secondary school enrollment rates are at or below 75%. Countries within the region are seeking ways to establish a stronger basis for financing policies through the systematic costing of development plans and policies and establishing comprehensive long-term financing strategies. The good news is that overall, finance is growing and diversifying rapidly. Alongside this growth, innovation is creating new opportunities. Countries are aiming to use an increasingly diverse set of instruments such as blended finance, impact investing, public-private partnerships, borrowing, bond issuances, and others. As a financial institution, Maybank has a big responsibility to play as we have the ability to direct capital away from activities that harm our earth to supporting sustainable development. We are aware of this role we play in creating a sustainable future for all, and in this regard, we continuously seek to understand the needs of our different stakeholders while remaining attentive to the implications of our actions on the communities we serve. Ladies and gentlemen, Southeast Asia is exposed to significant threats from climate change. It is evident through the increase in the number of extreme events, such as extreme precipitation events, number of hot days, extreme floods, and changes in behavior of typhoons and droughts in terms of their severity, duration, and onset. Significantly, it is the poorest and most vulnerable people and communities that are least impacted by the benefits of economic growth and who are most vulnerable to its risks and shocks. Progress in one aspect of sustainable development can catalyze progress in others. Likewise, a lack of progress in a particular area can constrain progress elsewhere. Climate change can lead to impacts in key sectors in ASEAN, such as food and agriculture, forestry, infrastructure, energy, among others. This represents a significant risk to cooperation's ability to remain sustainable. However, addressing climate change can also present opportunities for corporations to benefit from. We have seen a recent increase in the awareness, adoption, and impact of ESG. ESG has moved to beyond a buzzword into this corporate world, emerging as an imperative that businesses cannot ignore. This stems from the reality that today, businesses are being held more accountable for their corporate practices surrounding environmental policy, societal practices, and board governance. Having said that, there have been many controversies with regards to ESG in the news lately. For example, Tesla's removal from S&P 500, whether defense should be included under ESG in view of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, whether gas and nuclear should be included under clean fuel, and so on. These issues have created more confusion about ESG. Therefore, it is imperative that platforms such as ESG accounting standards and ratings are harmonized as soon as possible, as it affects everyone. The social aspect of ESG has also continued to be viewed as elusive in terms of the disclosures and practices. For example, the recent events in the US on the abortion debate, the Russia-Ukraine conflict which resulted in food shortages, the widening pay gap between CEOs and others despite the pandemic, the rising pressure on companies to take a stance on political matters and consumer interests, climate-related resolutions in shareholder meetings, and etc. There are many other areas of concern. For example, in terms of energy supply in the ASEAN community, the electricity mix is of vital importance. In 2018, nearly half of the carbon emissions are from the power sector, with major sources being coal and gas. Many countries have a way to go in moving towards greener growth paths. Indeed, emissions per capita are rising in 6 countries of Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, and others are key junctions in the economic development paths. The extent to which they are able to move into higher value-added activities and how this happens will have a significant bearing on how far economic growth continues to drive wider sustainable development progress. We need to prepare strategies to switch from fossil-fired power to renewable and low-carbon energy. On that note, it is anticipated that there will be much to debate and talk about in the upcoming COP27 on the backdrop of geopolitical developments and energy security, short-term considerations on coal, softer views on gas and nuclear, and joint strategy to accelerate renewables, carbon removal, and nature-based offsets. It is highly likely the million-dollar question could be how the world can move in the direction of the 50% reduction in emissions by 2030 and avert a scenario which pushes us into more than 2 degrees temperature increase, as the probability of achieving 1.5 degrees Celsius is already very low now. Ladies and gentlemen, for us at Maybank, sustainability is not new and has been an anchor of what we do. Our mission of humanizing financial services remains the cornerstone of Maybank's existence. It is an all-encompassing purpose to do what's right and fair for our stakeholders. Throughout our journey, humanizing financial services has been integral, from building our brand to shaping our culture. This is our litmus test, which we apply to everything we do. Acting with integrity, making business decisions, how we serve our customers, treat our employees, build our communities, relate to business partners, regulators and investors, and everything else. Sustainability is also one of the group's 3 strategic priorities in our M25 plan, alongside digital innovation and building new value drivers. To support Maybank's aspiration to be a regional ESG leader, we have identified 3 key pillars as long-term targets that will cement our commitment to delivering sustainable solutions for the communities in which we operate. They will guide our approach to driving sustainability and deepen our efforts in humanizing financial services. The first pillar, responsible transition, centers on supporting a responsible transition to a more sustainable economy by delivering sustainable financial solutions with ESG risk management. The second pillar, enabling our communities with the vision of the future, focuses on areas such as financial inclusion, community empowerment, and inclusive operations that creates a just, inclusive, and climate-resilient society. The third pillar, our house is in order and we walk the talk, is about upholding best practices within our organization, including strengthening governance, workforce strategy, and the management of environmental and social impacts across the value chain. Our deliverables in the area of ESG follows through from our sustainability journey taken over the years, including our financing commitments of no deforestation, no new peat, and no exploitation or NDPE, not providing financing to blacklisted activities deemed not in line with the group's core values, and no financing of new coal activities whilst transitioning together with existing borrowers to achieve sustainable renewable energy mix over the medium to long term. Last year, Maybank has announced our commitments to mobilize 50 billion ringgit in sustainable financing by 2025, improve the lives of 1 million households across ASEAN by 2025, achieve a carbon neutral position of our own emissions by 2030, and to achieve net zero carbon equivalent position by 2050. And finally, to achieve 1 million hours per year for sustainability activities and deliver 1,000 significant UN SDG related outcomes by 2025. Maybank will continue to regularly assess how we can further embed sustainability considerations into our business operations and investment behavior so that we can manage our risk appropriately even as we help facilitate economic and societal growth. We understand our role to play in the ASEAN'S ESG agenda. The group will continue to look at embedding sustainability across our operations to drive the change for a better world, better ASEAN. With the growing evidence that ESG brings positive impact to business outcomes, I urge organizations and leaders in ASEAN to start thinking, identifying, and implementing impactful efforts and initiatives to fully unlock the potential of ESG. Mark Carney, the former governor of the Bank of England, in his recent book, Values, advocates for a mission-oriented capitalism in which purposeful corporations see profit as a means to an end. Companies exist not just to make money, but to improve the lives, expand our horizons, and solve society's problems, both large and small. This, ladies and gentlemen, I believe is a good summary of not only the challenges facing our generation, but also encapsulates the opportunities for us to revolutionize capitalism in a way that our actions taken today will lead to our future generations emerging as the winners tomorrow. Thank you.